So in this lesson, we are carrying on with the February-March 2018 paper 42. We've already worked through some of the questions. We were working on using data to talk about COPID when we finished the last lesson. So now we're moving on to part B of the same question. And we start off with an explain. So nice to underline our question words. How the body prevents particles in inspired air, so air that is breathed in, from reaching the gas exchange surfaces. Okay, so those gas exchange surfaces, that's your alveoli. So how does the body prevent particles in air that's breathed in from reaching the alveoli? So we've got to think nicely through this, because an explain question means they want quite a bit of detail going on. So if we start from the very beginning, we think about where does the air first come through, and then we can sort of step through that process and we'll have a very nice explanation. So if you think a nice deep breath in through your nose, first thing that happens is that your nasal hairs are going to trap any particles. So large particles in particular are going to get trapped. So nasal hairs trap particles. The other big way of stopping that particles getting all the way through is, of course, the mucus. But we need an explanation, not just mucus stops the particles. Where does that mucus come from? So remember, it's our goblet cells. Produce mucus, which traps particles. Okay, so particles are now sitting in the mucus, but that's not stopping them necessarily getting to the gas exchange surfaces. Why doesn't the mucus travel with the particles to the gas exchange surface? That mucus is moved out of the gas exchange system. So cilia move the mucus with its trapped particles towards the throat, and therefore away from the gas exchange surfaces. And then how is that mucus and the particles completely prevented from reaching the gas exchange surface? Swallowed and enters the stomach. So we don't actually need to talk in this question about the acidic environment in the stomach, because it's not asking us what happens to any bacteria, for example, that have been trapped in the mucus. This is just how we're going to stop any particles reaching that gas exchange surface. And our answer has, with this roughly standard size handwriting, fills our space available, and we've got certainly very many good points in there, so we should be sure of our 4 marks. Next question asks us to state 2 ways, just 2, in which the composition of inspired air differs from the composition of expired air. So when you breathe in, okay, we're not going to talk about expired air because the composition of inspired air is the focus of this question. So what are the differences and what is special about the inspired air? So big differences in air is always oxygen, carbon dioxide, and water vapor. So when we're talking about inspired air, we have more oxygen. So more oxygen and less carbon dioxide. in the inspired air. So if you had wanted to talk about water vapor, you would have said that inspired air has less water vapor. Okay, but you're only giving 2, so you don't give a third. Only ever give what they ask for. Follow the instructions in your questions. Alveoli are well ventilated to provide efficient gas exchange. Okay, we've got to keep that air fresh so we can maintain those diffusion gradients. State the name of the muscles that cause the ribs to move during ventilation. The muscles that cause the ribs to move, the muscles between the ribs, the intercostal muscles. And the very last part of this question, during inspiration, so during breathing in, the pressure and the volume in the thorax changes. State these changes. Now think about it. Take a nice big deep breath, and what happens to the volume in your thorax? It increases. So that was nice and easy to do. And the pressure, of course, remember, the pressure always comes on the breathe out. So our pressure is going to decrease. So pressure decreases and volume increases during inspiration. And you have to get both of those words right to get your 1 mark for that question. That is the end of the whole big question. So as we move on to the next question, question 3, we have a dramatic change in topic. Onto a very good and fun topic, I have to admit. So, ecologists studied an area of woodland and estimated the biomass of each trophic level for one of the food chains in the woodland. Some students wanted to use the data to draw a pyramid of biomass for the food chain. Table 3.1 shows the students' table. The students added a column to calculate the width of the bars they would need to draw. So we have table 3.1. We have trophic levels 1, 2, 3, and 4. Producer, primary consumer, secondary consumer, tertiary consumer, all makes sense. Biomass, we have 120 grams per meter squared, 48, 16, and 2. So they are saying that in order to represent the biomass, they must draw a width of a bar that is 12 centimeters to represent 120, 4.8 centimeters to represent 48, and 1.6 centimeters to represent 16. And we're guessing we're going to fill that in. And there it is, part 1. Complete 3.1 by calculating the missing value and writing it in the table. So if we look at each of these, we can see that we have divided by 10 each time. To get from 120 to 12, we divide by 10. To 48 to 4.8, divide by 10. So we would have 2 divided by 10, and we'd have 0.2 is our width of the bar for that tertiary consumer. Using the information in table 3.1, draw a pyramid of biomass. Label each bar with a trophic level. And you can see that they have provided you with graph paper. Now, you've never come across anything like this. But you have come across graphs, you're familiar with graph paper, you can measure, you can count, and you can do this. So, if we look at the graph paper itself, we've got 4 trophic levels and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 big blocks, which kind of makes sense that we'd want to draw our trophic level to fill a big block going up. Then if we go sideways, they've actually told us the centimeters. And remember, this is 2 millimeter graph paper. So your big fat lines are every 2 centimeters. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 centimeters. So it is going to fit beautifully. So we can even label them, or we cannot, because it's not about a scale in this case. Okay, so let's label them down here so that we've got them for reference as we're working. Now, first bar, our producers, width of bar is 12. You will use a ruler to do this. And it would be very simply all the way across to 12. And you want to rule all 4 edges. And that would be our producers. Then 4.8 would be our next one, but remember, it must be lined up in the middle. Okay, because we can't just draw 4.8, because then we're going to end up with a triangle, not a pyramid. So if we're going to have 4.8, we would have the middle, and then we'd have half-half. Half of 4.8 is 2.4. So we want 2.4 on either side of the middle. And beautiful 12, middle is 6. So 2.4. Now we're counting in twos, right? So each of these is 10 little blockies. 2 divided by 10, 0.2. So each little tiny block is a 0.2. So to get to 2.4, we need 2 little blockies. Again, yours would be much more beautiful because it would be with a ruler. So another on the other side, 1 big block, 2 little blockies. And this is our primary consumer. Same thing now with secondary consumers, 1.6. Okay, so half of 1.6 is 0.8. So we need to go 0.8 to either side of that middle line on the 6. So 2, 4, 6, 8. There's our 0.8. 2, 4, 6, 8. There's our 0.8. And a beautiful line. And it's getting a little bit skinny, but maybe we can fit it in. Secondary consumer. The last one, itty bitty tiny, 0.2 is the full width. So half of it's going to be 0.1. So remember, we were counting in 0.2s for our grid. So 0.1 is halfway between and halfway between and across the top. And there's not a chance that I can write tertiary consumer in there. So label line and tertiary consumer. So I have drawn my pyramid. It's nice and pointy in the middle. And it's a pyramid of biomass, each bar labeled with the trophic level. The next part of this question says, a type of organism gains energy from waste organic material from all trophic levels. State the name of this organism. So who gets the waste from every level? That is the decomposers. Moving on to part C. Related, but taking a little diversion. Outline how organisms in the first trophic level, so our producers of the woodland food chain, produce biomass using energy from the sun. This question is asking us about photosynthesis. So, outline. We need to step through the process. So as they haven't told us that the process is photosynthesis, we can start out by that overview of what's the process, and then we can go step by step through what happens. So energy is produced. Oh, sorry, not energy is produced. Biomass is produced. Getting my words back to front. Biomass is produced through photosynthesis. And not just what, but where? In the chloroplasts. So what happens? Energy from the sun, light energy comes in. So light energy is converted or transferred to chemical energy How? Using chlorophyll, our green pigment. So we've got light energy to chemical energy, but this is not just about energy, it's about biomass. So what is produced? Glucose is produced from what? From carbon dioxide and water. So it's the same as working through that equation for photosynthesis. It's just we're describing it in this case instead of giving all of our chemical formulas. So glucose alone isn't biomass. How is then glucose turned into biomass in particular? Because they're asking us about biomass. So glucose is used to make cellulose. It's used to make starch. It's used for growth of a plant. So glucose is used to make cellulose and starch. These are being used for plant growth with the addition of new biomass. So we got all the way from an overview of exactly what the processes we're talking about, photosynthesis in the chloroplasts, but then that starting from that light energy that's received from the sun, how does that go all the way through to biomass in particular? So we're taking the question and we're answering the specific question that's being asked rather than just giving information about photosynthesis. Okay, always, always, always pay particular attention to precisely what's being asked by the question. Explain, give me details why the fourth trophic level has the least biomass in this chain. So why do we have the least biomass? It's all because of energy loss. At each level, energy is lost, and therefore the next level we can't support as much biomass. So the reason is that energy is lost between each trophic level in the food chain. Remember that if a lion eats a zebra, that lion doesn't eat every single piece of the zebra. Okay, so some of that organism is not eaten. If a zebra eats a grass plant, doesn't eat every single piece of the grass. Some of that grass is not eaten. So not all of the organism is eaten, and even worse than that, even if the zebra does eat most of the grass, not all of that grass is digested. And in order for the energy to be transferred from every piece of the organism, you would have to fully digest that entire organism. So that's not going to happen. Okay? We also have energy loss. You know, that zebra is living for a while before that lion eats it. And it's warm, it's losing energy through heat. He is losing energy through movement in trying to run away from the lion. And that zebra has also lost energy through excretion. So, energy is lost through heat, movement, and excretion. So what is so important about this loss of energy is that when energy is lost, we then don't have enough energy to support a bigger biomass in the next trophic level. The loss of energy means that there is less energy to support the next trophic level. So much grass can only support so many zebras, which can only support so many lions. And each time we go up that trophic level, then we have to reduce the biomass because we've not got a very efficient transfer of energy from one level to the next. So finishing up our ecology question, the last part of this one says that the woodland is a conservation area. Outline the possible benefits of conserving this specific area of woodland. Okay, so we don't know where this woodland is, we don't know what's inside it, but we can still think in general, you know, if you were going to conserve a woodland, and this one has got quite a lot of trophic levels, hey? We're going all the way up to a tertiary consumer. So we've got a very functioning ecosystem here. And what are the benefits of conserving something like that? So, well, first off, biodiversity. So when we are conserving the specific area of woodland, we are conserving all the biodiversity it contains. And that may also include endangered species. So we can conservation maintains biodiversity and protects endangered species. Okay, remember that when we want to do a whole conservation of an entire woodland, it's not just the animals sitting in a zoo. Now it's the soil, it's the rocks, it's a river, it's everything in that woodland. Okay, so we are maintaining the habitat, okay, the nutrient cycling, the provision of services, okay, all of that is being maintained. Doesn't seem to like wise today. Okay, we're also going to be maintaining the food chains. Okay, so we've got a good idea now of what's going on. We can think of it also in terms of things like soil erosion, maintaining woodland, we maintain the plants, we maintain the roots, then we maintain the integrity of that soil. So soil erosion is reduced. Okay, that's going to reduce siltation downstream, all sorts of beneficial effects of reducing soil erosion. And the other thing that's nice to bear in mind whenever you're talking about conservation is that it's not just about the habitat, it's not just about the species. If you've got an area of woodland that is conserved, you can also use that to educate people, and then maybe you can get more areas conserved, you get more functioning ecosystems when you're bringing awareness to more people. So this woodland can be used for tourism and education. And if we think about our mark allocation, 3 marks, 3 good points, well, we've got quite a lot more than 3 that we have covered here. So we've got a few minutes left. We're going to keep pushing on so that we can hopefully get through this paper in the next lesson. Okay, so question 4, from ecology to reproduction. Figure 4.1 is a diagram of a human female reproductive system. Complete table 4.1 to show the letter and the name of each of the structures that perform these functions. So we've got functions, letters, and names, and we've got a diagram with everything labeled. Function is releases estrogen. So where is estrogen released from? That is the ovaries. So it can be sometimes easier to do the name from the functions, then go find your letter. So the letter that's representing our ovaries, remember our ovaries are at the ends of the oviducts. So our letter is F. The site of fertilization. Where does fertilization occur? It generally occurs in the oviduct. So, as we just said, ovaries are at the ends of the oviducts. So here are our oviducts. Our letter is A. The site of implantation. So where does the embryo implant? It implants in the lining of the uterus. And here you've got to have your brain switched on, because if you look at these letters, we've got B is pointing to the uterus, but so is E. And we need to be specific. Okay, we can't just say the uterus because there's no point of implantation here at B. The implantation is in the uterus lining, it has to be an E. And then the last one, dilates during the process of birth, well, that's the cervix, because the cervix is narrow during pregnancy so that the baby stays inside the uterus, okay, negating the effects of gravity. But when it's time for birth, the cervix has to dilate in order for the baby to pass through. And our cervix then is at D. So you need to be familiar with the structures, but also their functions so that you can link everything together. So B, fertilization is a fusion of the nuclei of a male gamete and a female gamete, resulting in a zygote. State the number of chromosomes present in a human female gamete and a zygote. So remember, we would have N and we would have 2N. So our gamete will only have N. So when we have two gametes, we have N plus N gives us 2N. And that 2N is then our zygote. Zygote develops up into a baby, develops up into a human. So there we must have the full number of chromosomes present. Full number for a human is 46. So half in the gamete, 23.